Welcome back to Advocacy, Alchemy with Professor Ross. Today we have a good one, guys. Today we're going to be talking about a breakdown in the system that's so massive that it's like a movie script. We're here at Bedford County, Tennessee, where one man, a Trooper Asa Pearl, he's becoming a one-man wrecking ball for the Fourth Amendment. He's had 41 dismissed DUI cases. Imagine being stone cold sober. You're following the law and you end up in handcuffs because one officer claimed he felt you were impaired. And let's watch a quick news report and see how they found what that officer was feeling wasn't so much on point. Let's watch the news report. Let's talk about the law a second. Let's jump in. All right, welcome back to Advocacy Alchemy. Let's watch the video together, guys. This is here courtesy of, let me pop it up and you can see. This is courtesy of WSMV for Nashville. This is an interesting one. Let's listen to it together.
New discovery in our sobering problem investigation. We have uncovered that 41 DUIs have been dismissed in Bedford County, and every one of those arrests was made by a single trooper with the Tennessee Highway Patrol. It was on this rural street in Bedford County where Ron LaFlamme became number 41.
I was surprised when he started asking me to do a sobriety test.
Not the 41st person to be arrested by Trooper Asa Pearl for DUI, the 41st to have that DUI ultimately dismissed.
It was wrongful arrest and, oh, don't get me going.
In fact, word was getting around Bedford County about Trooper Pearl's DUI dismissal rate.
I know that during the time that Ron's case was making its through the court, Ron's case was not the only one with this particular trooper where blood results were coming back negative.
But finding proof of all those dismissed DUIs wasn't easy. No mention of them in Pearl's personnel file. And so we filed an open records request with the Bedford.
All right, let's stop it right there, guys. So what we're dealing with is a trooper who's had a number of dismissals, okay? We're talking about 41 DUIs that have been dismissed or null pros. Now, there's various different reasons they're gonna go over, but man, and he keeps catching people on that same little road there. I don't know if that's where he's supposed to work, or is that just where he chooses to catch people, and well, ultimately it's just harassment. Let's jump back in.
County clerk and found these dozens of DUI arrests dismissed, all made by Trooper Pearl between 2021 and 2024.
It tells me there was a systemic problem with what he was doing on the side of the road.
Then we obtained this, a spreadsheet put together at our request by the Bedford County DA's office, explaining why each DUI was possibly dismissed. Here's what it shows. In 8 of the cases, including Ron's, the drivers had neither drugs nor alcohol in their system. In 14 other cases, the driver's blood alcohol level was within legal limits and no drugs were found. And that adds up to 22 cases where Pearl arrested someone for DUI and they were sober.
I don't even take prescription drugs. I take one vitamin a day.
The other 19 DUIs dismissed are just as confounding. Look, several cases had to be dismissed because Pearl was no longer available for court or couldn't recall the events of the arrest. And we wanted.
Oh, and it's just fitting that we can address Officer Pearl himself. All right, so key point. Did you hear that they said that many of these were dismissed because he couldn't remember the arrest or he didn't show up to court? Now, that's one of the big things that a DUI attorney, they try to basically hope for, that the officer will either get a new job and not show up to court, or they won't really remember the arrest itself. Now, officers are allowed to bring their report and use it to refresh their memories, but here, this officer, he basically was doing a poor job at being a highway patrol trooper for Tennessee. Let's jump back in and let them finish.
To talk to Pearl about all of this. Why so many sober DUIs on the streets of Bedford County? Why was he not available for court?
Bedford County, if anybody's wondering, that's in the middle part of Tennessee. It's sort of south of Nashville, and the population there is 57,000 people or so.
Or couldn't remember details, but Pearl never responded to our emails or calls. All his personnel file shows is that in 2024, he resigned from the THP. No reason given. But Pearl is not forgotten.
All right, even though it says he resigned, he probably was offered an ultimatum. Either you can resign or we're going to fire you. If we fire you, that goes on your personnel record. You won't be able to get another police job for a certain period of time, or you have to go in front of some committee, or you might have to go back to the training you did initially to become an officer.
In this county, especially by 41 people.
Did you get an apology from the officer?
No.
This could happen to your child. This could happen to your parent. This could happen to your coworker.
As we have with every investigation, we reached out to the THP with our findings asking for an interview, but we received no response. And we've also created something for you. We have created this map. It shows all of the police agencies that have made sober DUI arrests, and that's based on public data and cases we've confirmed. And you can find this right now in this story on the WS.
Okay, that's a very interesting story there in Nashville. I think that's the news station is in Nashville. This is, like I said, just south of Nashville. This county is. Let's jump in. Let's take a look at the law briefly. All right. So you all may be wondering, how can I go find this? All right. Just jump on Google, type in whatever state you're in law, and let it pull back what the law book is, whether it's going to be from your legislator or if it's from a reputable site, something like Justia or maybe one of the universities. The university in your state, Cornell University, something like that. And they'll usually have the most up-to-date books. This code here is from 2024, so it potentially could have changed, but I was able to find the DUI laws under the motor vehicle part of the code. Take a look here, all right? You see it here. You can come back and find it yourself too. But what we're looking for is 55-10-401, driving under the influence prohibited. All right, that's basically going to be dealing with alcohol-related offenses and driving. This is going to tell us the blood alcohol concentration level. All right, we look here. It's unlawful for any person to drive or be in physical control of any automobile, and then they go on, so on and so forth. Number one, this talks about the different intoxicants besides alcohol. Controlled substances, you got marijuana there, you got, look, controlled substance analog. What does that mean? That means when you're talking about stuff like K2 and Spice, all those fake drugs they came out with, bath salts, back in the 2010s and stuff. All right. Any drug that affects the central nervous system, that's a prescription drug, any prescription drug there. Number two here, this is where we talk about alcohol. All right, 0.08%. This is a number that's fairly uniform throughout the United States. I think it's in most states, this is the blood alcohol limit. They do this way because states get their money federally, okay? So the federal government still does have a say in some of these things. That is a major reason why for a very long time, Louisiana was the only holdout in changing the age of drinking. I think they were the last state to do it, and they for a long time wouldn't get federal highway support. But like I said, most of the states have this limit for the legal limit for regular citizens driving. Look, the next one is dealing with if you're a commercial driver, meaning a tractor-trailer driver, it's even less. Now, in my own state, they have even less for a minor. It's like 0.02. Some states might have nothing can be in the minor's blood if they're driving. Go to the next statute, and this one is dealing with the penalties. All right. I think this is a lot longer too. This is going to be a longer statute. This is dealing with all the penalties involved. We go to the top. The very first is on your first offense. All right, first offense, you can be held for up to 48 hours. That's 2 days. And nothing short of a whole 1 day short of 1 year. 11 months, 29 days. Second offense. Man, they got something called the workhouse. Boy, don't get in trouble in Tennessee. Not less than 45 days. If this is your second offense, automatic 45 days after conviction to go to jail? That's crazy. And so on and so forth. You guys can come back and look at this. Ooh, third offense is 120 days in jail. So it's important, if you're in Tennessee, go ahead and hire an attorney to come over here, and so you have somebody that you're paying to fight on your behalf. Get a good one too. All right, but that's the law here. Okay, let's see what the next section brings. All right, the fines involved. First offense, not less than $350. 1,500. It can be any range in between. So look, if he's bringing all these cases that are being dismissed, think about it. Now, yes, you have this part of it dealing with court. Now, here, where I'm at, even if you are brought to court, you still have to deal with the DMV. They are a whole separate entity that's dealing with licensing. And they're saying, well, hey, look, you were stopped by the police. Now we're going to put some kind of hold on your license while we're waiting on that case to go through. Say, for instance, now you have a hardship license, can't drive to all the places you want to go, only to work, home, and doctor, stuff like that. Tennessee has a very similar situation. They got DMV. They're going to be working outside of just the law itself. Yes, you can be ordered to have your license restricted and suspended, but they also are going to have their own rules. Okay, so 41 dismissals, those are all people that might have to be dealing with their license and having some issues with it. Second offense, no less than $600, all the way up to $3,500. These are some very expensive offenses. Third offense, $1,100 and up to $10,000. Now, in my home state, after you get to your fourth offense, it's a felony. So this is probably felony also, because lowest is $3,000, the most is $15,000. All right, so you see the laws there. All right, so in Tennessee, don't be driving drunk. Don't be driving under any influence of some drug. Thanks for watching. Here, let's stick around, listen to the evidentiary standards and the conclusion. But once again, shout out to the news station there in Nashville for this report. All right, now the evidentiary standards are going to be important anytime we're dealing with the police or when we might have to go to court. We'll start from the lowest and work our way up to the highest. Always keep in mind that when dealing with the police or the court system, you really should be respectful, because you never know who's going to be on your side and in what position that person will be in. But let's start at the beginning. Mere suspicion, that's the lowest. All right, this is simply when the government or the police have a hunch that something's off. This is also the level where the police are being called out. So when you call 911, this is what happens. They get on dispatch and they tell the units in the area, I need somebody to go over to check out this situation. At the level of mere suspicion, the police don't have any legal action to do anything else but come out and see. Moving up to our second level, reasonable suspicion. Now, at this level, the police have specific and articulable facts. And what that means is they can actually point to something very specific and say, hey, look, I'm looking at this thing, and I believe there's an issue. Might be even a crime. From our example today, we're in Bedford County, Tennessee. This is located in Middle Tennessee. This county only has about 57,000? Yeah, about 57,000 people. So it's small town America. But you have a state trooper who used things like minor lane changes, or lane deviations, should I say, which are still legal. And that was his cause, his full reason to have some suspicion that somebody was intoxicated, and he would stop their car. Now, at this stage of reasonable suspicion, the officer can stop you briefly to investigate to see if there actually is a crime. That brief time would be, hey, they may ask you to perform field sobriety tests. Now, if you pass the test, or if you ultimately blow in the machine and it says, no, this person is not at the legal limit, you should be let go. Let's move to probable cause. Probable cause is where the police can legally arrest you. At this level, it simply means that the facts are so much that a reasonable person would say, yes, there is enough here for an arrest. Now, this is where this officer failed here, okay? He was using failed sobriety tests as probable cause for arrest. And I guess he was not performing the test correctly. This is all the stuff that, people would come to court and argue about. But nevertheless, this is the level where the police can actually legally arrest you. This is when they believe they have enough evidence to support an arrest. Also, this is the level where the police, if they have the probable cause, they can go to a judge and ask for a warrant. Moving up one more level, you have preponderance of the evidence. This is the level where you're in court for civil issues. Things like if you're fighting over a contract, or if you're claiming someone failed to do something they were supposed to do, and you're looking for a money damage. All that you have to prove at this level is that you have a claim that's stronger than the other side. You only need 51% of the evidence in your favor to win these actions. Now, if one of these drivers from Bedford, Tennessee sued the Tennessee Highway Patrol for a civil rights violation, they don't have to show this, more likely than not, that their rights were ignored. Now, the news report says that that officer resigned, but he probably was forced to resign, or he would be fired and that would go on his record, and then he couldn't go work somewhere else as a police officer. All right, next you have clear and convincing evidence. Now, this is a higher standard, but it's still mostly in that civil realm, okay? Sometimes you'll find it in the criminal realm when the state is asking for enhancements, or when you're dealing with things like bond, but it's mostly a civil standard. It's used on cases when you really need to have more evidence in your favor to win. You hear it used as when it's highly probable or substantially likely that your claim will be true. You need to have about 75% of the evidence in your favor to win these types of cases. The perfect example is in family law cases when parents are fighting over children and what house they're going to live in. But also you see it in cases where mental commitment cases, certain probate matters, when you're talking about whether a fiduciary duty was breached, fraud, when you have to deal with regulatory agencies dealing with this officer, say for instance, if he had to go in front of some administrative committee. This is the level they would be working with when dealing with whether they would suspend him or anything else. And finally, you have beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this is the highest standard. This is used in every criminal case, and it simply means that there is no other logical conclusion that the fact finder can come to besides that the defendant is guilty of the charges against them. For the state to gain a conviction, they need to have anywhere from 90 to 95% of the evidence in their favor. Now, many times, this is reached by a plea. If a person is saying, yes, I did this, then yes, you're automatically going to get to that level of proof. But you should always keep in mind that meeting this level is very hard at jury trial. So to convict 41 people, you need like 492 people all to be working together to say all of these people were completely drunk on the road or above the legal limit. Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. Okay, the lesson's simple today. Sometimes that little feeling, which you should use as a tool for your own safety, well, it can be wrong. Still have to have laws in your favor. Well, let's couch everything here. If your gut is telling you in a situation that something's wrong, say for instance in a traffic stop, stay calm, remain silent, and let the evidence, or like in this case, the lack of the evidence, do all the talking for you later. This guy, Trooper Pearl, he resigned. But you always have to keep in mind the damage that's done when someone's had to go and fight, miss work, pay for stuff. That can be hard, but the damage to the 41 lives is already done. So what do you think about this? If you were on this jury and you saw clear evidence that, well, these people might not have been doing what this officer is saying, who do you believe? Every time that you have a jury trial, there's always that question of, do you only believe the police because they are the police? If so, most of the time that person will be let off of the jury. When you're asking a person to sit on a jury, you need them to be able to look at the situation and use their own mind to say, yes, this happened, or no, this did not. And be willing to go back in there with the other 11 people and fight for what you believe in. All right, but enough of the soapbox. Thank you for watching again today. Like, share, subscribe. Remember, this is Advocacy Alchemy. I am Professor Ross. I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Be safe out there. Be smart. Have a great day.
I order you to come back tomorrow for another lecture from Advocacy Alchemy. Dismissed.